Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 11 of Keto Coach. This week, I'm going to talk about what is a stall and how to break a stall. I see a lot of comments from people online talking about how they're stuck, they're in a stall. And usually when they say they're in a stall, they're like, it's been a whole week since I've lost weight. That is not a stall. So that's the first thing I want to address. What is a stall? A stall is 4 or more weeks with no movement on the scale, no lost inches, no positive changes in the way your clothing are fitting. You're basically at a standstill. So that is what a stall is. If it's just 1 or 2 weeks where you're kind of going up and down a couple pounds and it's not moving as fast as you'd like it, that is not a stall. A true stall is more than 4 weeks of zero movement on the scale and no loss of inches. So one way, the scale doesn't always tell the whole story. So you should be taking measurements and taking pictures so that you can see differences, visual evidence in front of you. Because sometimes looking in the mirror or getting on the scale doesn't really tell us a whole lot. But if you take measurements and you do it properly and the same placement every week, then you'll have you'll have a record of some success, or you'll know for sure whether you're actually stuck. Speaking of measurements, I'm just going to go on a rabbit trail for a second. You should get proper measurements. You need to measure in the same place every time. And if you want to know what proper placement is, there's a video on bodybuilding.com that actually shows where to place the tape measure, how to hold it, and how to actually take your measurements. So there's some information for you. Okay, so if you're in a stall, if you haven't had any movement on the scale for more than 4 weeks, so there's been no weight loss, you're not losing any inches, your clothes aren't fitting better, then what you need to do is just reevaluate everything. One, make sure that you are not getting hidden carbs anywhere. Usually, hidden carbs come from eating out. So if you tend to eat out a lot, you might be getting more carbs than you think. So a solution for that is to eat out less, or make sure that when you do eat out that you are really aware of what you're eating, and it's okay to ask questions of the staff, or at the have your waiter or waitress ask the kitchen about things. So for instance, let's say you have meat but it's got a blue cheese crust on it. Well, a blue cheese crust normally has flour in it because that's how it crusts. So if it's got a glaze, then it's highly likely that it's a sugar glaze. So don't get any meats that have, if you're eating out, don't get meats that have sauces, glazes, or anything crusted on it. Those are probably very high in carb. Also, if you eat salads, I'm sure this one's kind of obvious. Don't eat the croutons. I think sometimes though I've seen people post things where they didn't realize that they couldn't have the croutons. No croutons, and I always ask for them to take if a salad comes with carrots, I have them take off carrots because carrots are a little higher in carb than I would prefer. So you need to look for those hidden carbs. Also, there's hidden carbs if you are eating processed or packaged food, and I don't care if the package says it's 3 net carbs. Usually low carb, sugar-free packaged foods they fall under the category for me of frankenfood, meaning not real food. It's food-like substances. It sort of tastes like food, and I guess to some people it tastes good. I mean, I know I used to think it tasted good. I ate packaged cookies all the time and thought they were heaven. They smell horrible to me now. So, but these packaged processed foods, they're not real food, and there's going to be hidden carbs like Quest bars or Atkins bars. They have this claim on them about net carbs, but the problem with that is there's all kinds of ingredients and things in there. It's really not healthy. It's marketed to us as a health food, but it really isn't. So if you're in a stall and you are including those kinds of things in your version of a ketogenic diet, then I would suggest cutting those things out. Don't do Quest bars. Don't do Atkins bars. Don't do Atkins shakes. Don't do protein shakes. Protein shakes are, usually, that's a lot of protein at once, but also there's, most protein shakes do still have carbs in them in the form of sugar. So you'll want to, stay away from those kinds of things. And so let's go. And also, so it's not just carb count. Like I see a lot of people go, I'm stalled, but my macros are perfect. I'm eating less than 20 carbs a day. Well, are you really eating less than 20 carbs a day? That's the first question. But also, it's not just carb count that matters. It's the contents of the food. It's the ingredients that matter. So if you're including low carb tortillas or low carb bread, it still has wheat and grains. There's still grain in it, and you want to stay away from grains. Those are inflammatory. And those types of foods could keep you from reaching your goals. So you need to decide, do I want to eat low carb tortilla or do I want results? Now, I'm not saying it does that for everybody. I know there's always somebody out there who wants to argue the point, well, I did all those things and I still lost weight. Well, I still lost weight in the beginning too, and I was eating Atkins bars every day. But you know what? When I quit them, my weight loss the next month was double what it was the month before. So, I know they were holding me back. And hopefully, I'm one of those people, I have to learn everything the hard way. And I know a lot of people are like that. But my hope is that you won't have to learn the hard way, that you could hear me or other people say, hey, these things aren't any good. You should consider cutting them out. And then, see if you get a change in your results. So yeah, don't include frankenfoods. That also include not just like the low carb tortillas or bread, and the bars and all that, but things like, the sugar-free Jello, or the sugar-free pudding, all those things, and Splenda. Okay, the difference between artificial sweeteners and a natural sweetener. Things like Splenda are chemicals, whereas stevia is natural. Erythritol is a sugar alcohol, but it's natural. It's 0 on the glycemic index. Those things are less likely to cause you problems than something like Splenda. Splenda is just the brand name for sucralose. I know a lot of people love to go to Starbucks and get their 2 pumps or 3 pumps of sugar-free vanilla or sugar-free mocha, but those syrups at Starbucks are definitely made with Splenda. And that's okay, once or twice a year. But if you go to Starbucks on a regular basis, I would not get those, pumps of the sugar-free syrup. I would, bring stevia with me or something, or just get it unsweetened. It still tastes good unsweetened. Once you get used to not having sweets all the time, you'd be surprised at how good it tastes. Okay. Also, the last thing I want to talk about in regards to stall, the other thing that can hold you back is eating too often or too much. I still see a lot of people eat 3 meals a day and they snack. And I did that in the beginning too. I thought that's what I was supposed to do because that's what we hear all our life, right? Eat 3 meals a day and have snacks. That's healthy. You need a balanced diet. I discovered a couple, several months in probably that, I discovered that I was eating when I wasn't hungry. And, I remember like just sitting at the table and like taking a deep breath and putting my fork down and thinking, I'm not even hungry. Why am I eating this? And I just decided right then and there, you know what? I'm going to eat when I'm hungry. I'm not just going to eat because look, it's noon, it's lunchtime. So a lot of people are still doing that. We overfeed our bodies and give it way more fuel than it needs. And then of course, in some people that causes a stall. It causes the weight loss to halt because we're, putting too much food in. And for those that are obese and battling insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, eating often doesn't do us any favors. It keeps our blood sugar elevated, and then and the more food we eat, the higher our insulin goes. And of course, we know that insulin's the hormone that causes fat storage. So the goal should be to lower the insulin, and you do that by not eating so often. So really, once fat adapted, meaning you are using fat as your main source of fuel, then really, I mean, once or twice a day is one or two good meals, well formulated, low carb, high fat meals is about all you should need. If you find yourself feeling hungry more often than that, chances are you're either not fat adapted yet, or you're experiencing head hunger because you're just so used to operating on responding to cravings as hunger. We think, I know I never knew what true hunger was. I always, I had cravings for food. I wanted food. I craved food. And so I made the mistake of confusing that with hunger, and I called it hunger all my life. Well, now I know the difference between hunger and cravings. So if you're feeling hungry all the time, and you're using that word, I'm hungry all the time, then either you're not eating enough fat, you're not fat adapted, or it's head hunger. It's one of those things. So you want to work on finding out what true hunger is. And that's not something that's easily learned. But for me, true hunger is really a real and true, like, gnawing feeling of needing food. And it's not like emergency like either. Like in the old days, like if I went 4 hours, if I had a meal and then 4 or 5 hours went by and, I was craving sugar again, it was like, oh my gosh, I have to eat right now. And that sense of urgency, real hunger is not urgent like that. It's just, hey, you know what? I'm hungry. I need to eat. There is no sense of urgency. There's no food emergency. When you're fat adapted, you just really shouldn't have those, like, that roller coaster thing going on of hunger. So it takes a while, to learn what true hunger is, but eventually, you figure it out. As long as you stop eating so often. If you continue to eat often, it's hard to find true hunger. So fasting is a good way to figure out what true hunger is, and we can talk about that another time. But so anyway, basically, if you're in a stall and you find that you that you're eating things that aren't real food, you're eating out of habit or by a clock, and because you're and you're eating out of not true hunger, those are all things that could hold you back. So you want to evaluate everything you're doing, and if it's none of those things, if you're doing everything right and you're only eating once or twice a day, and you don't, you're not suffering from hunger, and you don't eat frankenfood, and all you eat is real food, and it's slow going, then that's okay. Like I said last week, even slow progress is progress. It's okay if it's slow. Some people have more healing to do metabolically than others, and it takes them a while. We just have to have patience. You will eventually get there. The scale will eventually move. Your inflammation will keep going down. You'll keep healing, and you'll eventually see results if you're doing everything right. So all you can do is be patient and keep going day after day, one foot in front of the other. Okay? All right. I hope everyone has a great keto week, and I'll see you next week for episode 12.